Welcome back, everybody. We're diving deep today into something pretty heavy, actually. The Los Angeles wildfires from January 2025.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack.
We've got articles, reports, you name it. But it's not just about the fires themselves.
Right.
It's about the impact. Communities, celebrities, historic landmarks, all gone.
It's a big reminder that these events, they're driven by nature, but the impact on people is just huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of impact, one report said over 10,000 structures were destroyed. Just like gone.
Wow.
10,000. So let's rewind to those first few days. Dry brush everywhere, right?
Right.
And then those Santa Ana winds pick up.
Oh, yeah.
Recipe for disaster.
Oh.
And then, boom, the National Weather Service issues a red flag warning.
Which basically means, for anyone who doesn't speak California, that all the pieces are in place for a wildfire. Dry, windy.
And low humidity.
Right, low humidity. It's a warning for everyone to be super careful.
Yeah, a giant alarm bell. And two fires really stand out in the reports. The Palisades Fire and the Eaton Fire.
Yeah, the Palisades Fire was just massive.
Over 17,000 acres.
Yeah.
Making it the most destructive in LA history.
And a lot of these articles, they were written while the fires were still burning.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine not knowing if the flames are going to be contained, if your home's next? Over 130,000 people had to evacuate.
Jeez. I read about one family who had, like, minutes to grab what they could, photos, a few things, and that's it. Everything else, gone.
It's just awful.
And it wasn't just homes, was it? Businesses, community centers.
Historic landmarks.
Gone.
Yeah.
And that's where the economic part comes in, right?
Right.
Businesses closed, tourism's down, insurance companies paying out huge amounts.
Right. It goes way beyond just the initial damage.
It's a ripple effect. So
Yeah.
we've got over 10,000 structures destroyed,
Yeah.
right? And then you see headlines about celebrities losing their homes.
Oh, yeah.
J.J. Redick, Rosie O'Donnell, even Jamie Lee Curtis, Billy Crystal. Does it change how we see this,
Yeah.
knowing that even the rich and famous aren't safe from this stuff?
It's interesting, isn't it? It definitely grabs your attention, maybe makes it feel more real for some people. But you have to remember, behind the famous names, there are still families who've lost everything. Their home, their security, their memories.
Yeah, you're right. A house is more than just, how much it costs. And there are tons of people who aren't famous going through the same thing.
Absolutely.
The family who owned the corner store, the artist who lost their studio. Their stories matter just as much.
Definitely. And it's not just about people. You've got history and culture lost, too. The Will Rogers State Historic Park, including his house, was completely destroyed.
Oh, wow. And what about the Topanga Ranch Motel?
Mm-hmm.
The one built by William Randolph Hearst?
Gone.
Places with so much history, just gone. That's rough.
Yeah. And then there's the Pasadena Jewish Temple and Center. A big part of that community, it burned down, too.
It shows you these fires, they don't just hit individuals. They hit whole communities.
Yeah.
Places of worship, gathering spaces.
Yeah.
The things that hold people together. There was one little bit of good news, though. They managed to save the Torah scrolls from the temple.
Oh, that's good.
In the middle of all that loss, it's a reminder that there can be hope.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes you think, how did the government even begin to respond to this kind of disaster?
Well, it was all hands on deck. Biden and Harris both canceled foreign trips.
Yeah, I noticed that.
It's a sign that this was a serious, serious priority.
The leader of the country dropping everything to deal with this. Wow. And Biden didn't just, talk about it. He approved that disaster declaration.
Yeah, that's huge, right? That's what gets the federal funds flowing for aid and recovery.
Makes you think about all the things that money goes to, right? FEMA, housing, loans.
Exactly. Without that declaration, people are in trouble.
Totally. But yeah, like you said, money only goes so far. I was really struck by what Harris said about being prepared all year round.
Oh, yeah. What'd she say?
Well, it was like she was saying, look, California, this isn't a surprise anymore. You got to be ready. Always.
Yeah. Which, raises some questions. Like, what does that even look like? Being prepared all the time.
Right. Stricter building codes, better forest management.
Or is it more about, teaching people, making sure everyone knows what to do?
I think it has to be all of those things,
Yep.
right? You can't just, cut down all the trees and call it a day.
No, definitely not. And telling people to be careful isn't enough.
Not even close. It's a big issue. You need a lot of solutions.
You need a ton of solutions, and that's where things get tough. Because, reading through these reports, you see this tension between what individuals can do and what the government needs to do.
Oh, interesting.
Like Newsom, the governor, he talked about how many firefighters were involved. Over 7,500.
Wow, that's a lot.
A ton of people, tons of resources. But it also makes you wonder, are we just reacting all the time?
Are we just throwing people at the problem instead of fixing what's causing it?
Yeah, exactly. And some experts, they say we should focus more on preventing fires, not just putting them out. Things like, controlled burns to get rid of dry brush, or making sure there's space around houses so they don't catch fire as easily.
That makes sense, but those things can be tricky, can't they?
Oh, yeah. Controlled burns can get out of control sometimes. And people might not want to clear the area around their house.
Yeah, I can see that.
So it's a tough balance, and that's why it's so important to communicate clearly. Make sure people understand the risks, but also the benefits of preventing fires and what they can do themselves.
That brings us back to what Harris was saying, right? About being prepared all year. It's not just about clearing brush, it's about changing how we think about all of this.
Totally. It's about changing how we act, how we treat the environment.
And remembering that this isn't just a California problem, right?
It's everywhere. These fires are happening more and more all over the world because of climate change and how we live. It's a problem for everyone.
So, big question, right? Where do we go from here? After reading all these reports, what's the main takeaway?
For me, it's realizing that this is all connected. These fires, they show us the cracks in the system, like how we're not prepared, how some people are way more vulnerable than others. And we need to start blaming each other and start finding solutions.
Yeah, I get that. It's easy to blame the government or environmentalists or whoever.
But that doesn't help. We got to work together, find some common ground, and do things that actually work.
Totally. Instead of asking who's to blame.
We should be asking, what can I do? How can my community get stronger? What policies do we need to support?
It feels like a call to action. We can't just wait for the next disaster. We have to do something.
Exactly. And even small things can make a difference. When everyone does them, it adds up.
So what about our listeners? What can they actually do? They've heard these stories. They know how bad it was. How can they help?
It's tough, right? It feels so big. But honestly, even small things can help.
Like what? Give us something concrete. What can people actually do?
Well, first thing is just, be aware. Even if you don't live in California, know what the wildfire risk is where you are.
Right.
Have an evacuation plan, just in case.
With your family.
Yeah, with your family. And if you're in a place where fires are common, think about landscaping.
Using plants that don't burn as easily.
Exactly. And even think about your house itself. Building materials. Some are more fire resistant.
Okay, so it's about being prepared, not just waiting for something to happen.
Exactly. And that goes for community stuff too, right? Support groups that are working on fire prevention.
Yeah, there are tons of those.
Donate to people who lost their homes. Volunteer. Whatever you're good at, there's a way to help.
Volunteering, that's a good one.
Yeah.
What about, the government? Can people do something there?
For sure. Talk to your representatives. Tell them to support policies that, fight climate change.
Yeah.
Or make forests healthier. Fund research into wildfires. That kind of stuff.
So we've got individual action, community support, and then changing the system itself.
It all works together,
It's all connected.
And remember, this isn't over. Even though the fires are out, people are still rebuilding their lives.
It's going to take a long time.
A long time.
So maybe that's what we leave people with today. Think about the people who are still dealing with this. Think about the choices we make, in our lives, the things we support.
Yeah.
Because this stuff, it affects all of us.
Yeah.
Especially as the climate changes.
Well said. We're all in this together. So until next time, keep learning, keep asking questions.
Yeah.
And do something, even a small thing. It makes a difference.